Duane Nutter, welcome to Biscuits and Jam.
Pleasure's all mine.
Where am I reaching you right now, Duane?
Mapleton, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, out a little suburb outside of the city.
Okay. Is this
Not too
this is home base for you?
home base. It's where all the magic happens.
And I hope your commute isn't too bad to the restaurant.
No, no, it's probably about 15, 20 minutes. No
Okay.
traffic.
That's nothing in Atlanta.
The problem is finding the no traffic.
Yeah, right. Well, Duane, I just want to start by saying congrats on the book.
Well, thank you.
It looks great. I haven't seen a physical copy yet, but it looks like a lot of fun. I've been looking at the PDF. It's called Cutting Up in the Kitchen: Food and Fun from Southern Nationals Chef. And I've got to ask you, you've been at this for a pretty long time. What made you want to finally do a cookbook?
Well, there was two reasons. I definitely wanted to just get my story out since, as you know, you start to age and all of a sudden you start seeing friends passing away. And I was like, I got to get something down on paper since I have no kids.
So you were motivated by the
Mortality.
clock. Yeah.
When time flies, it flies.
And tell me about the title. It's called Cutting Up in the Kitchen. So a little nod to your side hustle as a comedian.
Yeah, yeah. In my little early days when I was running around Atlanta, I was always at the comedy club and hanging out, trying to be funny, being
Uh,
sarcastic at work, getting in trouble.
Dwayne, why aren't there more comedians in professional kitchens?
The people take food too damn serious. I'm
I
like,
mean,
I take my food serious, but I make sure I have fun while I do it.
I was talking to someone on the staff earlier today, and we were trying to think of other folks that did both, that were comedians and chefs, and I couldn't come up with any. I'm sure there are some.
There's not many. There's not many. I met one guy who started. He was a young buck, and it was an open mic. I don't know where I was. I was in another city, and he goes, "Man, I worked the line at such and such grill." I said, "Well, you got one day. You got to pick one master because you can't do both."
It's kind of a unique angle for a cookbook, and but it's also a really unique um, just angle for your career, and to kind of be involved in both. I mean, do you see any correlations between comedy and being a chef? I mean, do you find that the comedy has kind of been a creative outlet for you, as a kind of a nice way to just do something completely different?
Yeah, it's one of those like a relaxing situation,
Yeah,
even though it's kind of stressful trying to be funny.
yeah,
But I think anytime you can get away totally detached from your main gig is kind of relaxing to put your mind frame in something else.
yeah.
But it's the similarities I would say is actually the storytelling part.
Hmm.
Once you get into the groove and figure out your style of cooking and what you want to present on the plate and who you are, then you start telling your story through your food. Great comedy is all good storytelling. And of course, another a sarcastic joke in there here and there, but you all starting off with a premise and a story.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say that you came from a family of storytellers?
Yeah, I find out when I was a little earlier. I heard my dad was really silly. He played the drums. I can't play the drums. I hear music. I just can't play music.
Uh huh.
But my grandmother was on my dad's side. She was quite spunky, and I figured out that's probably where I got it from.
On your dad's side, you said?
Yeah, my dad's side of the family, my grandmother, she was a hoot. She always had something crazy to say to her nurses or something.
So, Dwayne, you were born in Morgan City, Louisiana, right?
Hmm.
But you were only there till you were seven or so.
Right.
So I'm wondering what your connection to that place is like. Talk to me about how you kind of identify with Louisiana, um, and does that feel like kind of a home base for you in a way, or was that um,
It definitely feels like that when it's time to like totally recharge
yeah,
and you have to go like to where you first started dreaming,
yeah,
walking down that street, see the old house or the whole pile of rubber where the house that you grew up in was, see the neighborhood, the tree I got stuck in when I was a little kid. That thing is still there.
do you still have family there?
Yeah, well, not in Morgan City. I have a few cousins there, but most everybody's in Lafayette.
Hmm. Yeah.
My uncle and everybody's in Lafayette. They moved from there because it's once that Schlumberger oil company left that little town. Nothing's been there since then.
What was it that brought your folks to Seattle?
Oh, it was actually because I needed to learn how to read. I was a dyslexic kid back then, still is, but they didn't know anything about that in Louisiana at the time. It was like, hey, your kid's just writing upside down. What's going on? And so my mom did a lot of research, and we went to the University of Washington when I first got to Seattle. And I had a few cousins up there, and I got tested for the severity of my dyslexia, and they figured out what school district to put me in. And then me and my mom moved in that area, and then that's when I went to school. So that was the main reason for going to Seattle.
And you just moved there. This was just with your mom.
Yes.
And was that hard for her to leave Louisiana? I mean, did she, you know,
Yeah, it was
really
pretty
have
hard.
deep
As I
connections
got
there?
older, hear the
Yeah.
stories. Different relatives calling her, hey, they found a school in Baton Rouge. You can move back. She's like, well, he's having a good time now. He's got a bunch of friends. No sense in disrupting a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about your mom. You dedicated this book to all the cooks in your life, starting with her, and her name's Rosalind. Rosalind, is that right?
Yep. Oddly enough, Rosalind Russell.
So tell me about her style of cooking, and what was on the table.
Oh man, it was special occasions was I guess a lot of overtime. She was a nurse and some pot roast every now and then. Some of the things that remind you of home. See, before Amazon and all that came out, they had a thing called Greyhound and dry ice,
Uh-huh.
and that's how we would get the camellia beans, the Tony's chachari, the good andouille sausage, and that's how we grits and stuff like that would get shipped up from the south from relatives to Seattle, and that's when we would have all the red beans and rice. When we had the good red beans would come from Louisiana, and even navy beans, pinto beans, and all that type of stuff that us Southerners classically eat.
Yeah, I mean, if she was really a cook and had those deep Louisiana roots, that had to be hard for her walking into those grocery stores and trying to find what she was looking for.
I had no idea crab cost money until I moved to Seattle.
Right, you just throw a net, right? And you just
Yeah, it was
bring them
a
in. Yeah.
relative, or uncle, or somebody would bring by some stuff, some shrimp, some fish. You help everybody help clean it. We clean out the old milk cartons, clean the shrimp, put in the milk carton, line them up in the deep freezer. Before the Tupperware came out, running underwater was, oh, we're gonna have some fried shrimp. It was like it was free, and you
Yeah.
just running under some water, rip open the carton, thaw it out, season it up, and go to town.
When you think about your own cooking, I mean, does um, does Louisiana, does Cajun cooking play kind of an outsized role?
I think I said in one quote that I'll probably put a bay leaf and some thyme in some dish that it has no business in, just to remind me of my home.
Yeah.
So that's in strange places in the recipe you might find a bay leaf that some French guy would be mad at me because I did it.
Uh-huh.
But it's, hey, I'm trying to make it taste like home a little bit.
Yeah. I was looking at that dedication, and there's a number of people in there, and I wanted to ask you about a couple more, and one of them was your Uncle Bob, who you called a quiet assassin on the barbecue pit, which I kind of love. Tell me about what was his specialty.
Man, it's like he just, I guess he wasn't allowed to smoke in the house, so he just mind his business and set up this little kitchen outside. And he was really good at frying some fish. And I think I talked about him in a Garden and Gun article a long time ago. He does some good ribs. And one time when I was young, he really flipped me out when he cooked some beans on the grill and had tilted the lid so the smoke would get on there, get inside the pot.
Yeah,
And I had these navy beans that was smoked, and it was different. It wasn't from a smoked ham hock or sausage or anything. It was just smoke from like real smoke. And I was like, oh man. I said, man, you a bad man. And he just laughed with a little soft voice, call me by my middle name. Get out the way,
which
boy.
is
Sherney.
Sherney. Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you don't hear that every day.
Nah, it's a little Irish situation.
Oh, that's great. So he's a pretty creative cook.
Yeah, yeah, he can get down. Uncle can get down. Cousin Janice in Seattle, she can get down.
Well, so a lot of people in the family, for sure, that could cook. But I want to ask you about another one who had a pretty big impact on you, and that's Daryl Evans. Um, Talk to me about him and how that connection kind of changed your trajectory as a chef.
That was a special moment in time back then. I think the first time I saw him on TV, I think I was still in high school, and I think it might have been the '88 Olympics. He was on the team. I think they were on the Today Show, getting ready to go to Frankfurt, Germany. And I was like, who was that little dude in the background just running circles around everybody? Then I tracked him down and it was also the same time I decided, okay, I want to be a chef. I'm going to do this. Now, who's going to teach me how to do the things I want to do, or who I'm going to learn from? And I tracked him down. I think it was like a pork competition or something. I don't know if you remember way back in the day in all those magazines we had the California raisin competition.
Yeah,
You had the avocado competition. You had a pork competition. It's paying money too. And you send in your recipe, and then I finally found out where he was working. He had won the pork competition. I think he had beat Bobby Filet back then, before Bobby Filet was Bobby Filet. And got his number. I was sauteing at this Italian restaurant in Seattle. I went and called it from the magazine and just introduced myself and said who I was and what I wanted to do. And he said, "Well, when you get down here, give me a call. I'll show you around." And and then I just saved money. I worked at the Washington Athletic Club in Seattle. I was doing overnight baking, and then at the Italian place, I was sauteing on the line during the day or at night. That second shift, 3 to 11, and I did the 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. baking, and then saved up all my little money. Flew down here, stayed at the Motel 6. He came and picked me up, showed me around Atlanta. Well, I said I'd go work with whoever trains you. So I applied at Cherokee Town and Country Club. I think Mark Erickson was working there at the time, and Catherall had Tom Toms and Prime and all that stuff. And I came back the next summer, and he had the job at the Occidental Grand, and I turned down the job at the Cherokee to go work there with him. And the rest is history, really. I got there, I don't know, I have just turned 21. Yeah, had me a little one bedroom apartment, stayed with my cousin for a little while. The rest is history. I was at the Occidental Grand when it turned into the Four Seasons. And by that time, I probably became the Garde chef. And then we left there and we went to Villa Christina out there in Dunwoody. And that was quite the experience. I used to feed Maya Angelou a lot up there.
really.
Yeah, she had a house up there, and she would call whenever she was in Atlanta, see if we stay open a little late for her. And I was like, yeah. Chef de cuisine at the time was like, I gotta go to Gotta go hang out. What you guys talking about? Who is this lady? I was like, dude, you don't know Maya Angelou? We'll stay open.
I mean, what would that scene have looked like? So did she come in and kind of have her own setup? Would she come with a group of friends, or what did
No,
that
it
look
was
like?
usually just her and her driver. And she would come in. If she called first, and then I think it was me and Todd mostly working the nights.
That's Todd
And
Richards.
yeah, we was working. And that's like the first time a customer ever gave me like a bottle of wine. She brought us to the table the first time and was like, first she wanted to know how we made everything, and then why we were doing what we were doing and what brought us there. And it was called home like, dude, you ain't gonna never know who I just fed. This is like, just turned 22 or something, 22, 23, and like your first big time feeding is Maya Angelou. So whenever she would come to Atlanta, she'd kind of track down where Chef Evans was and get a little something to eat, lunch or whatever.
That's amazing. Did she have a favorite dish or something that you remember
I just
serving
remember the
her?
salmon dish we did. It was a smoked salmon. We cold smoked it and then seared it to order. I think we had like a little olive tapenade and a little Chardonnay cream. It was the 90s. And I think we had potato wrapped it back then, when you did the shoestring potatoes. Because I think Chef was like, because Tom Catherall trained him, right? So I think when Tom did azaleas, he had this potato wrapped trout dish. So Chef was like taking his that idea and doing it, applying it to the salmon. And we was figuring that out. And I remember that distinctive. Had like a little tiny frittata with it,
Yeah.
with roasted peppers and roasted garlic inside of it, and one of those little thimble molds. I remember now. The Todd was working on the station and pop it out. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. We did like this. It's doing way too much when you think about it. It's like we had this crepe, like this red wine crepe, and we put it in the pan, make it look like a fish net, lace it. It looked like the fish was caught in the net. It's crazy.
Just creativity running wild.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of kids just bougie for no reason.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. That's
But yeah,
great.
that was good times right there.
Did she ever give you any advice?
No, not really, other than just just being true to who you was when you was like doing your true passion.
Yeah.
That was gold. Don't get caught up into the hype. Just and I always took that to heart. Kind of like probably why I chose the name of the book. I'm the only silly cook I know.
When you met Daryl and got to know him a little bit, did it mean a lot to you to see a black chef having the success that he was having, particularly at that time?
Yeah, yeah, because there's not many people that look like you doing the thing you want to do. Especially when I was in Seattle and I said I wanted to cook, everybody was trying to get me to go work at Shoney's or Applebee's, and I was like, that ain't what I'm talking about.
Right, right.
I think I'm trying to get into more.
I've got other plans. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into a more creative space than just quesadillas. And nothing wrong with quesadillas, but I wasn't gonna make a living making quesadillas. So I definitely will eat a bunch of quesadillas. So yeah, that was like oh, it can be done, and it was like that with probably 80% of the people in the kitchen. It was had a guy that came down from D.C. Patrick Clark had sent him, and he moved to Atlanta. I think Todd just happenstanced. He was going through his cooking gypsy life, and
Uh-huh.
he was working next to him at Tom Tom's when he was in between gigs going to the hotel.
Yeah.
And then we had a guy named Reggie. He worked with Bonchet, remember old Gene Bonchet back in the day. So he was all Frenchy. You just let him make all the beurre blancs, and just give it to that guy. And And we had Schuler, of course, Daryl Schuler. He was in the kitchen with us.
Yeah.
Uh, First African American master chef. And who else? John was there. This guy named John. He has a little barbecue place now. I think him and his chef was on the same Olympic team with Chef in the '90s, and then
So
he
you
was
guys
referred
really
for Senate.
fueled each other.
Yeah, it was high competition.
All right. So Duane, I want to ask you about the comedian thing. Um, you move your to you moved to Atlanta in your early 20s. What was a formative experience for you when you were trying that out, when you were kind of on the stand up circuit? I mean, was there a certain club or venue where it kind of clicked for you?
Um, I'd say it was Roswell, the punchline at the Roswell where it started to click,
Yeah.
and Uptown Comedy Corner, the one that was on Peachtree. Those two clubs, and then I started doing. When I really started to figure out what I was doing, it was I started doing improv at Whole World Theater on I think they're off of Spring Street or one of them streets. They're still cracking today, and I would do 2 or 3 days there, and then we would have shows on Sunday nights, and then open mic was Tuesdays at both clubs, the Punchline and you could and Uptown you could if you planned it right, have some friends sign you up. You can hit one on one side of town, and since I was one of the guys who had a car because I had a job, like let me get a ride to see if I can get me 5 minutes at this club. And so I got a '78 Cadillac full of comedians driving across town trying to get some stage time.
So when you think about your material, I mean, and I think you said this in the book that you would crack jokes about being a chef. Um, what's so funny about being a chef?
There's a lot. There's a lot out there if you just pay attention. There's things that happen in high stress moments that could be funny, and sometimes and you need to poke fun at those moments so it helps the people that's really stressed out. Let them
Yeah,
know that it's okay and they can get through it. There's a lot of folks that get a little frazzled when there's more than 10 things going on at once, and a lot of us can handle 5 things at one time, but 10 things to get us a little hairy.
yeah,
And so then I'll come in and kind of like smooth the thing over and let everybody know it's going to be all right, though. It's just groceries.
yeah,
And, and letting folks know that they came to see you. And
yeah.
the main thing is don't mess the dish up trying to get it out too fast. Just steady and just get it right.
Well, I'm guessing you get to see all sorts of humanity working in working in kitchens.
Oh, man. Yeah, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, from the guests, you're like, who came in this bathroom? And we fed them? I would not invite this person back to my house. And and the same with just like I don't know if you remember Ratatouille. It's just like
Sure.
that's probably the best kitchen movie, restaurant movie because it's like all walks of life. We
Right.
heard that guy was a hitman. No one ever really knows. That guy used to own a bakery and now he's a line cook. I mean, you got car mechanics, you got physics, you got engineers that just left the gig and like to cook. This is a hodgepodge of it's a pirate ship back there.
Yeah. Now we have the bear, and we've seen the same thing with
Yep.
that, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dwayne, speaking of getting a glimpse of humanity, you were at One Flew South in the Atlanta Airport Terminal E, amazing restaurant that really kind of changed the notion of what an airport restaurant could be. And I ate there many times, and it was always just, it sort of took you away from where you were, which was the airport. It kind of
Yeah,
transported you to somewhere else. Um,
those were some special times. It was before I had gray hair, actually. It was a different Duane.
but talk to me about, what are some things that you learned about humanity being in that airport and cooking for that clientele for so many years. It had to be a really just interesting mix of people that would come through the door.
Yeah, it was the first year or so was a little more challenging because I was coming from a traditional restaurant. We was at a hotel. You know, lamb's high, switch to protein. You know, venison's gone through the roof. Let's change it up. Oh, scallops out of season. Let's do this. But I realized the loyalty of people that have to travel for a living. Some things you just can't change all the time because people get comfortable and they need that familiarity to get through the day. And paying attention to people more than just paying attention to the food was probably my biggest thing I learned. And I think that's when I started to hit the stride as, you know, part of the menu was for people that came all the time. There was a guy that worked at the security company in Dubai. He came twice a month. I always kept a hot pepper. He needed something spicy. So there was always something for him. And then there was another guy that sold like medical equipment. He never sat down. You know, like the people see him at the bar and just move the chair out the way. Like, yeah, we're setting him up right here. They're like, what's going on? This guy doesn't sit down because he flies so much. He has to stand up and eat. And there's all these little things when you start paying attention to people, and they just reward you by just coming back, and you just keep doing your thing. I mean, I remember Russell Hitchcock was a regular in there. Uh, I wish I knew the guy's name, the wrong answer guy. Tell a story in there. He was a pivotal point in all the employees. They never forget that guy who just yelled in the restaurant.
Yeah, do you mind just sharing that real quick? The wrong answer story.
Yeah, he was. It was funny, but not funny because again, paying attention to people, and this was a very aha moment. The train broke down, you know, but in Atlanta airport, so he had to walk a mile to get to One Flew South. The escalator ripped up his shoe, so now he has like one shoe tore up in his hand, and like the conveyor belt ate up his headphones wire set, so now he has no music for his long trip. Everything's gonna be all right because by the time he gets this end of this mile walk, he's gonna get to One Flew South, and then he's gonna have that scallop dish that Duane does. And when he got there, the scallop dish was gone, and that's when he blew his lid.
So the waiter, I guess, told him that the scallop dish was gone, and
That's the
he,
wrong answer.
he said that's the wrong answer.
But he stood up and said it so everybody in the damn restaurant can hear him.
Uh
And he
huh.
was talking to the general manager at the time, Brad. He said, Brad, that's the wrong answer. You got to come better than this. And from that moment on, I realized that maybe I can just change the scallop sides and just keep the scallop because there's going to be a few people that's there just for that particular reason.
So it's about taking care of your people, taking care of your customers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Once you identify that, you just keep doing what you need to do for your people.
So Dwayne, what is different about Southern National, and what, obviously completely different thing, but when you were getting that off the ground, what did you want to do differently that you hadn't been able to do at One Flew South, or what was the direction you wanted that to go?
Well, I'll say I kind of stayed the same direction, but I kind of want to maybe spend a little bit more time with the people, with the dishes as well, because the airport was such a fast pace. So then there was just certain things I just couldn't do because of the pace.
Yeah.
And there's things you can do because your pace can be a little bit slower in a traditional restaurant versus the airport. and space and time constraints and everything else. I think it was really just being able to sit and see the people more, because that's probably why you see my plate up station in the dining room, and just be more a little personable and letting folks know that this is, there's no TVs in here. We're just kind of cooking and having a good time, and we're just paying attention to the food, and hopefully the service is good, and people can communicate and do what people do when they go out to eat and share their time with friends and loved ones,
Yeah.
sometimes coworkers, closing deals, all the things that we do at restaurants, and just kind of sit back in the pocket of society and let life happen in front of you. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we do.
I want to ask you about a recipe from the book that I think you serve at Southern National, and it's called Lamb Burger Helper.
Oh yeah,
Is that on the menu still?
yes, yes, yeah.
So, this isn't the sexiest name I've ever heard for a recipe, but it does look awfully good. I mean, there's a great photo of it in the book, and it looks like something that, um, you know, people would get very excited about when you set that down in front of them. Talk to me about that
Yeah,
recipe.
it's that's another one of those digging into your childhood to tell your story. And I did eat a lot of hamburger helper. Well, I'm that generation where it came out. I remember the commercials, the little hand jumping around on TV, and I was like, okay, well, as an adult, what am I going to do? I'm not going to make that. And I was like, well, why don't I just flip it around a little bit and did basic research into besides all the preservatives that they have in that box, they have oregano. So I decided to do my version of that hamburger helper, but with lamb. Yeah, it's one of the first things I learned. Besides, I think it was the bologna sandwich was first, and then I learned how to do the hamburger helper by myself, and I did good with that. And then my mom showed me how to make red beans and rice after that, and those like kind of the order. So I wanted to put that in there somewhere because it was so early in my childhood of learning how to cook, and that's my nod.
When you think about all the recipes in the book, is there one that kind of represents your style of cooking? And I mean, you've been kind of ahead of the curve on Southern cooking for a really long time, and we're introducing new ingredients and new styles, and kind of uh, I think taking Southern food into some new directions. Is there a recipe that kind of represents that for you?
I think it probably will have to be probably the mussels and the collard greens
Hmm.
that I finally put in there. That's another one that came about at the airport, and it's kind of followed me around. I usually only put it on the menu maybe half the year, and then like bring it back at a certain time because it's like it's been following me ever since I came up with it at the airport. And it went through a lot of different iterations, and it finally stuck on this one. And this is what the people said they wanted from me. And I think the growing up in the South and eating mustard greens, collard greens, and all that stuff, and then I remember the smell when I would ride my bike around Lake Washington and the Puget Sound or whatever of those mussels on the side of the on the rocks, and the seagulls are mashing them up and eating them and stuff, and you can smell them. And then I was like, what would make a good pot liquor, and I can get them two together that might make an even better pot liquor. And I just kept playing around with the idea of the pot liquors getting together, and that's how I came up with that mussels and collard greens. I think way back in 2009,
Mm.
and I'm still cooking it now.
Well, that means you obviously did something right, and yeah, I love that the people, you know, the people know what they like, and they're going to ask you for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I have no problem with that. I'll switch it up. Right now, I'm finding that my chicken dish, the Berber spice chicken with I fry the chicken with potato starch and cornstarch, so it's like a gluten-free fried chicken situation.
Yeah.
I had no idea it'd be that popular. So I took that off, and there was a few people was like, "Well, I ain't coming back until you put it back on." They wasn't lying either. They did not come back to the restaurant until I put it back on. And then I did this chicken schnitzel, doing a shout out to old Atlanta legend Sean Doty back in the day. He was a schnitzel king down here. And I was like, I'm back in Atlanta. I'm gonna do a chicken schnitzel. And then the chicken schnitzel people, when it went off, they was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then I was like, yeah, man, you haven't had this Berber spice chicken that everybody's gonna. As soon as I put it on the internet, there's like 20 people just show up, just like, I told you I wasn't coming back until you put that chicken back on. I'm like, dang, you guys are for real.
Oh, those are hardcore fans.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not stuck into just two chicken dishes for the rest of my life.
Well, Dwayne, we got to talk dessert for a second. There's a citrus pound cake with buttermilk
Oh,
and bourbon in here that looks
mm.
right up my alley. And I think you said something in there about how you done a million different variations on this one. Why did it take you so long to kind of perfect it?
Well, I know it's like you're always playing with these pastries. I mean, if you're into that sort of thing. But it really was during the pandemic down there in Mobile. I was also supplying some stuff because I have a baking background for this coffee shop that was around the corner. And I kind of dialed that cake in just so you can dip it in some coffee. So it's a little denser than an average pound cake. I'm not whipping a lot of air into it or nothing, like a classic, you know, uh, scenario. I specifically wanted it to be a certain way so you can dip it in the coffee. And then between the buttermilk and the bourbon, when you're getting that smell and that almost that zingy zip that you get from buttermilk,
Mm.
and then the citrus kind of enhances it. It's just like, oh man, this is serious. So I was aiming for the smell you would get when you dip it in the coffee, and those flavors had to be strong enough to stand up to the coffee, and the cake had to be dense enough that it still be like a cake and won't just totally fall apart when it hit the coffee. That's what I was going for. Now, whether you dip it in coffee or not, or just have it with whipped cream, that's fine. But that's the reason why it's not full of air and all that other stuff. And it's just a little bit more dense than the average pound cake.
Well, it sure does look good and it sounds good. And we're getting toward lunchtime here. And so I'm really starting to think about it. So, well, Dwayne, I just have one more question for you. What does it mean to you to be Southern?
What does it mean? That's an interesting question. The South is so complex. It's got good history, bad history. But if you just get together and talk about it, it's just history. What's going to be the future is the real question. Besides being the best cooks in the land, that's about it. I mean, you get a little bit of everything down here because of the close your proximity to the equator, that southeast situation, and you can grow potatoes, you can grow mangoes, you can grow everything down here. So that's a blessing. I don't think you can. Although the folks in California are cheating, I will say that they don't have to learn about canning or preserving and all that. That shit's just good right off the tree.
Right.
But we gotta do some work to make our stuff taste good in the winter months sometimes. And the smoking, the curing, the pickling, and all that part of the South is like part of the rhythm of the South, I believe, that I just come accustomed to. That I'd probably have too much time on my hand if I stayed in California because it's like I say, stuff's good everywhere.
Well, we're awfully glad to have you in Atlanta.
Well, thank you so much.
And congrats on the book, Duane. It's called Cutting Up in the Kitchen, and it's fantastic. I know you must be excited to have
Yeah, I
it out
finally got the
there.
baby out there.
Yeah.
Finally got my
Um,
story out.
well, congrats on that, and thanks so much for being on Biscuits and Jam.
Oh, and you know I love biscuits. You take care.